Welcome to the first episode of Hypothetically Speaking. This is a podcast with two dads drinking bourbon. Tonight we happen to be drinking some Angel's Envy Triple Oak. We will be diving into conspiracies, exploring facts, historical context, and the psychology behind them.
We know some shit, but there's a lot of shit we don't know. We will weave in opinions to create a lively discussion with fresh perspectives with a touch of humor. Bear in mind, this is a podcast consisting of opinion-based facts.
Enjoy the ride.
You know what's interesting is being grown up in the 90s, where it's just say no to drugs and all that stuff. It's just it's interesting to me just because I feel like, when we were, and it's crazy because there's some people that have been imprisoned because of the fact that they were drug dealers or whatever that sold marijuana. And then look at it now. I just voted yesterday or 2 days ago, and there's a legalization of marijuana in Florida, which you never thought would be a thing, especially since this used to be the drug capital of the world outside of New York or something like that, whereas now it's legalized, it should be legalized to the point where, we can actually see some good benefit out of it. But creativity really starts with drugs sometimes. I'm not saying that, drugs are great or whatever, but it's just if you look at history, a lot of the things that have been created, I don't understand them and how somebody could have come up with certain things from a creative mind. And then all of a sudden, you really think about it, it's just what the fuck is it that they do back in the days for fun,
Absolutely. There's been documented things that have been created while on drugs. There's been people who have written some amazing shit, amazing books, made amazing movies, made amazing music while they were on drugs.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, we can't condone the uses of drugs because that's bad. Drugs are bad, kids.
Yeah.
But when you look through history, and you can go back many, many, many years, there's been a lot of shit that's come from drugs that's been pretty fucking cool. It's been pretty badass.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Most recently, think about the fucking iPod. The dude who invented that said he experimented with LSD and other drugs to help him be more creative.
Well, it's the same thing with the CIA, where at some point they experimented, or the Department of Defense at some point experimented with LSD, for soldiers and stuff to for the purpose of PTSD. But, me as a former service member, would I have gone into a clinical trial for LSD? Maybe. But especially if it's going to help you deal with some of the stressors of war, which I've experienced quite a bit. It's just it's one of those things where I think that unlocking the true potential of your capacity as a human being is important. And I think that there's so many stressors and blockers on a daily basis that don't allow you to breach the ability to think at the level for which, would unlock a certain portion of your brain that brings out the creativity and the innovation in you. So for us right now, we're sitting here drinking some really good bourbon, and really I got the juices flowing. And I'm not saying that, here's the argument. Is alcohol really a drug? Really? Or is it a hallucinogen? What is it? What do you think it is?
It definitely helps you be more creative. If you look back, Stephen King talked about drinking quite a bit when he wrote some of his greatest books.
Okay.
So it did bring out a dark side on him.
Or the other day,
Misery. There's some dark shit in there, but it's well documented that he was drunk when he wrote a lot of his bestsellers.
But going back to it, it's just if you think about it, all of these great philosophers, Aristotle and
what was Aristotle and Socrates? What were they taking?
Yeah.
Because they were way outside the box with the way they thought.
Oh, I agree.
What else did you do for recreation?
Okay.
I don't feel like there was a lot of fun things to do.
Think about what you do today for fun. You sit there and you scroll through Instagram, Facebook endlessly, and then you can sit there and entertain yourself literally all day. Yeah. You have all of these movies and shows and everything that you can watch on these subscription-based services. But back in the day, like I can't even imagine being like a knight.
Yeah, like
back
what
when,
was fun then?
Yeah, nothing. You had your guarding the door.
You had live music back then.
Sure. Okay.
That was it.
Okay. Yeah.
No music videos.
You had strippers.
You had strippers. You had whores.
Yeah.
Lots of whores.
Lots of them.
I mean, outside of that,
there's only so much you could fuck.
Yeah. Sex.
At that point.
Sex. Music.
Yeah.
There had to be drugs. There had to be a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking going on back then.
Yeah.
To fill your days. Yeah. I mean, if you were king of the castle, I know on TV they glorify it where you're sitting there and you're doing all these badass, leading a war or a conquest against your enemy. Yeah,
but see, here's the thing. Like when you look at the dramatization of things happening, like on shows or something, it's the in between where it's just like, they're staring at each other and then like they say something like edgy and stuff. And then it like cuts to the next scene. Like what the fuck happens between that? And then like when they're out in the field, like, ready
what
to
happened
go.
In that 7 hours between the meeting at the table?
Yeah.
Went to war.
Sure.
I don't know, but there was a lot of downtime.
There was downtime.
So
it's like, what do you do in that downtime to fill the gap?
What?
Like, are you sitting there eating rations and stuff? Like, are you just like, I don't know, taking a nap? Like, what the fuck do you do?
You don't run out of rations because you take that from the people.
The peasants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. For the farmers.
Which is probably badass as a king. You get everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you go, you rape, you pillage. Yeah. Like, not saying that that's a good thing or whatever, but back in the days, that's what they did.
That was the thing.
It was the thing.
Exactly. Yeah, the king gets everything.
Yes.
His advisors get what's left, and then everybody else gets whatever's left after that.
Sure.
Except for the knights.
No.
They stand there cold as shit in a steel outfit in 20-degree weather.
Yeah, which blows my mind. And that's kind of around the reason where I think that, like they talk about plagues and all these things, these sicknesses that they had in the past, and it really contributed to their life expectancy, where it's just like you had a king that was like king at like 13, 14 and stuff, and then they're really old around like 30 to 40 years old, which is kind of fucked up because that's around my age specifically. So I should be like dying right now if I was born back in the day or whatever.
Medieval times.
Medieval times, yeah. But
I'd be an anomaly. I made it past 40.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
I'd be a freak.
You would be a freak.
I'd be the dying king laying in bed with...
You would be.
Whatever plague they fucking had back then.
Yeah, and it's funny because... And I hate to bring it back to modern times, but a lot of these weird ass diseases and stuff that have been eradicated in the past kind of coming back. Like I have one of my employees, like I was telling you the other day, like came up and he said, "Oh, I think I have COVID." I was like, "Okay, all right, take some time off, go rest and do your thing." And then all of a sudden, like he went to the doctor and they told him that he had meningitis. Like I don't know a lot about meningitis, but like I haven't heard that word in a very long time.
It's not running rampant.
No. Well, it might be in the future,
I mean, Gaza has an outbreak of fucking polio.
That's crazy. I thought we beat it. I thought we beat it. Yeah, exactly. We abolished. Oh wait, maybe abolish is not the right word, but I thought we got rid of it.
Yeah.
Like we found a vaccine and it was effective for like, I don't know, 50 plus years and stuff. And then now here we are. Yeah.
But I know there's a different type of polio.
A different strain?
This is going to get a little outside of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
But I know there is...
Everything is outside
vaccine-induced polio. I saw something about that. I don't know a lot about it, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Not to get myself in trouble.
Okay. And that's interesting
reason.
Because when you hear about certain vaccines that are developed, like they're developed off of like weird ass shit, like Viagra, right? Who is sitting there testing turtle eggs and stuff? Because, in Costa Rica, I guess around a certain time, like they had, developed a specific drug and then they saw that it made your dick hard and they were just like, well, shit, like we weren't researching this. We found this by mistake. We found a different cure for something else. Okay, like let's roll with it. But then there's way too many coincidences to get you to that point.
But Viagra is a good example. I don't think Viagra was, I don't know, let's say that men are developing Viagra.
Okay, all right.
So yes, they're like, oh, how can we help somebody with their heart?
Okay.
But damn well, bunch of men standing around. They give this to a man, his dick's hard for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. They're focus now changes. They're like, hold on a second. Fuck the heart. Who gives a fuck? Have a heart attack. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
This man's dick has been hard for 4 hours.
Yeah.
First of all, cha-ching. That's money. Second of all, self-trials. You guys want to take this home? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Because if a woman was developing that and they put it into a man and saw his dick get hard for 4 hours, they're not having any of that. They're like 4 hours, way too long.
I mean, what is way too long? Because you know how
4 hours?
Well, yes, it is. I 100% agree. But it's funny because, you know, growing up in the 90s, well, I did specifically. But anyway, all to say that there was like all these baby making music and love music that was just like making love all night long. I was just like, dude, all night long was never a thing. Really wasn't.
No.
It still isn't, and it never was in the past.
Yeah.
It was way too much.
You can go all night long, but you're going to take breaks. You have to get some Gatorade, towel yourself off.
Yeah.
And then go back in.
Yeah.
Maybe Keith Sweat and some of those guys were onto something. They knew Viagra was coming.
Sure.
To go all night long, but definitely men invented that. They're like, yeah, I want my dick hard for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But no woman was like, that's a fantastic idea.
No, and if there is, I mean, I'm sure there's someone that thinks that that's a great idea, and there's most people that think that it's not.
I mean, it's designed for men who can't get it up, which is a lot of men, 65, 70?
No, it's
80?
younger now.
It's younger now,
Yeah.
but when it was invented, It was for the older crowd.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me there's some 85-year-old woman who's been married for fucking 50 years that was excited that her husband was hard for 4 hours.
No, I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
No. But I will say that because, men younger and younger are having these issues, I think it really has to do with a lot of the stresses that we deal with on a daily basis. And I don't mean to...
Social media?
Well, there's that. But I don't even want to get into social media because I have very strong feelings about social media. And then, just how it messes with people's mental health and all that stuff. But going back to, medieval times and just, the kingship, and I don't even know if that's what it's called, but essentially, being in court or whatever, and, correct me if I'm wrong here in the comments, if there even is a comments and stuff like that. Again, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. We're just sitting here just having a conversation. But all to say that I don't know what the fuck these people did back in the day. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's cold as fuck, or sometimes it's hot as fuck. What do you do to fill the day? Really?
Exactly.
There's only so much you can do to hunt.
You take drugs. That's my theory. There was a lot of drugs. Mm-hmm. I mean, how did they figure out what fucking drugs to take? That's beyond me. I mean, a mushroom. Yes, you found a mushroom you could eat that was good for you.
Okay.
So you start finding more mushrooms. I understand how you discovered those fuckers and started eating them.
Yeah.
Why you would eat that off of something like cow shit?
Yeah. But see, then you have Johnny that took a bet or whatever, goes and eats, mushrooms coming out of cow shit and then dies. And it's just like, ooh, can't eat the mushrooms out of cow shit. But how do you record that? How do you go and spread it to the masses? Hey, don't eat mushrooms out of cow shit.
But the next guy eats it and sees a fucking burning bush.
Exactly. There you go. And then starts writing some scriptures.
Yeah. Or eats it, starts seeing fucking aliens, starts seeing all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah.
So then they see how much fun this dude had, and they're like, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
And then what do they see?
I don't know.
There's a lot of stuff.
They end up becoming disciples.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, that's
a whole other time.
Yeah. But see, then, so it's one of those things where it's just even forging a blade. There's a process to be able to forge a blade. And I know that there is a knowledge share to be able to say, hey, listen, this is how you take a rock or steel or whatever, and then you actually build it into a blade and all that stuff, whatever. There's historical context to that. From an origin perspective, the first person or being or whatever that said, hey, that you can build steel off of this. And I actually don't know how steel is actually made or whatever, but there had to have been some sort of origin to everything. And most things nowadays that are technologically advanced have no origin story. It just happened.
Yeah, there's not a lot of documented failures behind a lot of those things.
Yep.
So where does that come from?
Like, where are the trials coming from? Where do they test on humans or whatever?
There's a lot of stuff where, they'll shoot down people who have alternative theories on it, whether it's reverse engineering alien technology or stolen from another government or another country, just so we can say, hey, we invented this. But there's not a lot of trial and error that's documented. I mean, the microprocessor. There's people who believe we have reverse engineered that from alien technology, that we've somehow got a hold of that technology, the metals used to produce them, and we reverse engineered it, and we came up with a microprocessor. However, Intel and all these companies they've done their debunking on it. They're like, no, here's all the stuff that we've done to get to this point. But there's some stuff that doesn't add up.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. And what's interesting about that is it rolls back to the origin, but then furthering and advancing information from the point of origin becomes a lot easier to trace and explain. But the epiphany that someone had and said, I'm going to make a semiconductor, I'm going to try to, do X, Y, and Z to be able to create this microchip. And yeah, you might start with a really large computer that then ends up being like our cell phones and everything starts being a lot smaller and a lot more portable. But at some point, you had to, and that's the part where the paper trail of the innovation makes sense. But a lot of the things that were developed over time, things that we use on a daily basis, were all developed by DARPA. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't remember what the acronym stand for, but basically, it's a defense, the United States Defense, Department for essentially creating technologically advanced products and things that we use on a daily basis, like GPS and radio waves and all kinds of different things. That's all to say that I think that from a development standpoint, and being able to take core technologies and furthering them into the future, that makes sense. But then it just boils back to, how the hell did someone sit there and think about, or some sort of philosopher think about, or even a technologist at the time or genius think, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to create whatever, something that we use on a daily basis, but we can't really trace back into time and say, this is how some person thought about this one thing that we use on, our cell phones and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense. So, there's stuff like Steve Jobs said when he created the Macintosh computer originally. Mm-hmm. He was on LSD. That's how he came up with a bunch of the interface and all this stuff on there. Back to the beginning of our conversation here was drugs. So he used drugs to open his mind to create all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But where did his first idea come from? How do we get there? And granted, I will give, to be the steel man here, to play devil's advocate on that, is nowadays we document everything. 50 years ago, we were a little loose with documentation. There's certain things that are kept under lock and key, like Coke's recipe, McDonald's secret sauce, all that shit.
Sure.
It's kept under lock and key. But we didn't document things in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, like we do today. No. So to play the other side of the fence here, maybe they were conducting all these experiments, but nobody documented it.
No.
Or they had a loose leaf piece of paper with chicken scratch on it. That's their documentation, and then it didn't work. They threw it out and started again.
Yeah.
That's the 50s and 60s. 2024, everything's documented several times. You record it on video, audio, you write it down, you memo it, you get Chat GPT to do all their shit for it, and then you got everything.
Well, it's interesting because nowadays, when it comes to innovation, you're essentially just improving upon old technology. Mm-hmm. These are things that have already been developed, and there really hasn't been edge technological advances. It's just been improvements of core bases of technology, or at least that's what I've seen in the past, where it's just, with the exception of things that we have found that, just happen to come out of the skies, which, could be alien spacecraft. I think that there is a limitation in which is the elements that we can find on Earth to be able to develop things for the future. Now, it's not to say that as we continue to evolve as a species, as Homo sapiens, that we won't find, different things that could further the advancement of humans. But it's just, I don't think that there's anything from an invention standpoint that has happened since like the 50s and 60s. Like that was like the key innovation point where all of a sudden we went from sticks and stones to guns and nukes around that time frame. And then now it's just like who's got better technology.
Just make it bigger, faster, better.
Stronger. Yep.
There's nothing that's absurdly new.
No.
Like, think about when we went to the first computer. That was huge. Mm-hmm. People were like, holy shit, what do we have now? I mean, we have cell phones that are faster than a computer was 20 years ago. It does more than a computer does. But it's still essentially the same basic product that we had originally.
Yeah.
Just bigger, faster, stronger. So not a lot new in that. You look at some things, we've kind of dumbed them down. But we're going to avoid social media right now. We're not going to talk about that.
Well, I mean, simplicity is key.
Yes.
I think that now, like with what we're seeing is more of like the age of automation and making the human almost obsolete.
Yeah. AI, robots, stuff like that. I mean, China's got that army of robots they're making over there.
Army of sex dolls.
Yeah, army of sex dolls.
Yes.
Terminators.
Terminator sex dolls.
That they're making over there.
Yeah. Next thing you know, like you're having sex with a sex doll and then you don't have an appendage anymore.
Yeah, eyes turn red.
And then you're done.
Just like Arnold.
Yes.
And you're done.
Yeah.
Sarah Connor, and then we're done.
Then you're done. Yeah. I mean, at that point, like you just might as well die.
Yeah.
But
let's we'll get back into a little bit of topic there. Sorry guys, this is what happens.
Yes.
That's the alcohol for you. We did tell you ahead of time we were going to be drinking.
Yes.
We get creative. Sometimes we lose a little focus. It's part of it.
Yeah. And that's why you're here. You're here 24 minutes into it. So thank you.
to hear those things, to see how far off tangent we're going to go.
Yeah.
So to bring us back in, we started out talking about drugs and the influence it's had over the years. Mm-hmm. And we went way outside the box on that. I mean, there's been a lot of studies done especially in the 60s, the hippies, they were onto something with hallucinogenics and LSD and everything they did back then. But there were so many studies done back then. And even then, the U.S. government was a little bit more lax on drug use. You weren't locking people up as often as you did 10, 15 years ago for drugs.
No.
Once again, we're not saying drugs are good for you, but there was a lot of creative shit that came out in the 60s because of drug use. They were doing studies on it. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, to this day, they're considered like music gods.
Legends.
They're people.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimi Hendrix, was it because of hallucinogenics that he had that epiphany to make a left-handed guitar? Because nobody had done one previous.
That's a good point.
So
yeah,
maybe he was on LSD one night, flipped his normal guitar over when he learned, and he was like, I could totally make a left-handed guitar. LSD.
But see, what you just talked about is a small modification or innovation to something that already existed. And I feel like as a species, we evolved slowly in like improving the things that we already know to make them a lot better. And then that becomes profitable and people make money off of that. But then you also have the opposite effect, where it's just like, if you think about the potentials in terms of creating energy, whereas like we still have coal plants. And again, like I'm no expert in this. Is there a finite number of nuclear plants that we can have in the world? Like, are we allowed to have more, or is it just the risk assessment of having a nuclear plant? Why don't we have, mini nuclear plants, or, the scalability of nuclear, like, and I don't know the nuances of this, but we should, because it's essentially infinite energy.
It's the cleanest energy.
It is the cleanest
energy. The problem is who runs those plants? Homer Simpson. The Simpsons was warning us.
Okay. All right. Yeah. But see, like the reality of it is like, people got to make money.
Yeah.
Like things are so expensive. Like right now, I mean, every time I go and do groceries, it's like $600 a pop or whatever for a family of four. That's ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. When it comes to energy, I remember like probably for the last 10 years, like I basically doubled in my cost for energy, even though like the technology itself has not evolved at all. It's stayed exactly the same.
Yeah, that technology hasn't changed, but
no,
everything else has.
Yes.
Your phones, faster, brighter.
Yeah.
Screen still cracks, but whatever. They haven't fixed that technology. Everything else gotten faster. The light bulbs have changed.
Yeah.
We've gone to a brighter LED light bulb, but we haven't decided the cleanest and most efficient way to make energy.
But there's a conspiracy about light bulbs. So apparently there was, back in the day, there was some sort of agreement, and that, I mean, we can look at it like separately and stuff, but there's an agreement where companies at the time, like they created, like there's a lighthouse that has had a light on that lighthouse. It's so good that it's been lit for 100 years or 100 years plus. And we know how to create really good light bulbs or, electrical components, but there is a shelf life on everything for profit's sake. Like even with food, not saying that like some food doesn't expire, but there's certain food items that expire for the purpose of making more money and having people buy more of that product. If you create a quality product and you only have to buy it one or two times, like in your lifetime, there's no profitability in that. But if you build subpar components and you know that they're going to break over time, then you're going to have that constant stream of revenue and stuff. And I think that that's what we're facing today.
Yeah, that's the dilemma of capitalism.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to make money.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to, well, maybe not everybody, but some people want to make a quality product.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you make something too good, you don't have the repeat business.
You don't.
So you're going to have to make something a little less than perfect.
Yeah.
So that it lasts you X amount of time, and then they come back and buy another one.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like everything has a fuse, where it's just like at some point it just like pops and you're done, like kind of like light bulbs.
Absolutely.
Stuff,
But even with that, that's capitalism, which is the United States. It's not as if you go to Russia or China, they're making stuff that lasts forever.
No.
I mean, China's not making things that last forever. They last less than stuff that is made in the United States.
Yeah.
They're almost making things to last half as long. They'll make it half the cost, but you're going to buy it 15 times.
Yeah. Exactly.
Knowing, well, it's only going to last 6 months, but
yeah,
I can afford to pay $50 every 6 months as opposed to $100 all at once.
Yeah. There's a balance between quality and, lower prices and stuff for intermediary materials and stuff or whatever, or like less than, optimal products and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, dude, people are driving cars from the 40s, 50s, and 60s still.
Yeah.
Nobody shows up at a car show with a 1998 Subaru hatchback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look how cars are made nowadays. It's all fasteners and plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like before it was like actual metal and steel and stuff in the frame.
Yeah, you show up with a 57 Chevy, people are like, damn. I mean, the car does look cool.
It does.
But it was built to last as long as you do the maintenance on it.
Yeah.
Nobody's showing up in a 2004 Saturn because you did the maintenance on it, but didn't make it 20 years.
Yeah.
Everything broke. You had to trade it in. You had to go get yourself a Hyundai because it's equivalent.
If I were to look up, like from a data analytics perspective, the selling points and the value proposition of a lot of companies nowadays, the most common term used is value and quality. But then what dictates quality and value in a situation where the actual core materials are what is determining whether that is a factual statement or not? Whatever, you can say whatever you want and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a digital age where it's just like, there's so much false information out there. Like you don't even know what's real and what's not. It's just, the way that you say things and the way that you tailor things that make the decisions for you, basically. Yeah, it's quite sad. But how did we go from nights to now talking about product marketing?
Alcohol. That's the only thing I got for you.
Yeah. It's random.
We started with drugs and nights, and then we went to cars and profitability and quality.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what we're doing here.
I got a question for you though.
Yeah.
So going back in medieval times, you know how like you go and you watch cartoons or you watch shows or whatever, and there was like alligators or crocodiles within moats?
Yeah.
Those moats were not in Florida.
Yeah.
How do you get crocodiles and alligators
in England?
In England. Like, where did that come from to where there is that type of animal or reptile in a moat? Who made that up?
I know, right? Cartoons, I think.
Cartoons.
It had to have been in a cartoon once.
Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry. Yeah. And then from there, people are like, that's genius. Let's do it all the time.
Yeah.
Not so much now, but Game of Thrones didn't have any crocodiles.
No.
They were trying to keep it, historically accurate with the dragons and shit.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And giants and all that
stuff. Yeah, and then, all the frost giants or all that crazy shit they had on there. They were just trying to stay as historically accurate.
Absolutely.
Now it sounds like we're on drugs. So,
well,
not yet, guys. Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, we're.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in the future, episode 100 or whatever, but we actually have full-time jobs on a daily basis. So there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're almost halfway through an entire bottle of Angel MB Triple Oak. As you can tell, we're feeling quite nice at this point, especially 30 minutes in. So thank you for sticking with us.
Yes, on this tangent of tangents. So
yeah,
we're gonna get back into some better stuff here for you. We're gonna get away from the automobile industry and quality of products, and we'll bring it back in to something a little more interesting for you. I mean, I think what I want to talk about is something I was looking at the last couple of weeks. Let's talk a little bit about some alien shit, because there's some stuff I've looked at. There's been all these reports. I mean, the government's now admitting that they've seen aliens, that we have alien shit, which is awesome that they're admitting it. Mm-hmm. So all these crazy people who have claimed to have seen aliens or been probed by aliens, it legitimizes some of the stuff that they've been talking about. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it makes them feel any better that they've been probed in the ass by an alien. Well, the government has, just to check myself, the government hasn't admitted that aliens have been taking humans and probing them.
I actually think that there is a quota.
There might be.
Well, I have two theories in my mind. I think that if you look at Anchorage, or Alaska, the Alaskan Triangle, where the most amount of missing people are within the United States.
Yeah, 22,000 people since the 70s.
Crazy. Yeah, but I think that, there's two separate explanations that I've heard. One is alien abductions, and then two is, here's where it gets a little crazy, where it's more of a portal, where it's just like, if you look at Skywalker Ranch, or sorry, not Skywalker Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. That's what it is, not Skywalker Ranch. That's where I want to go.
Yeah, we're not heading to that galaxy yet, folks.
No. But Skinwalker Ranch, where you have you have a lot of anomalies that happen in the Skywalker Ranch, from the chupacabra to, half wolf, half man and stuff, like weird stuff that's happening. I feel like that type of stuff is happening in Anchorage, where you have Yetis and all reports of weird like beings and also creatures that kind of appear out of nowhere and then all of a sudden disappear. And I think that that's where like some of the mystery of like, people just disappearing kind of is a combination of all of that stuff. And there's also electromagnetic type of activity that's happening over there, where you have certain mountains. I forget which mountain it is, but there's allegedly a mountain in Alaska somewhere where there's a alien pyramid that is supposed to be some sort of alien structure that provides some sort of energy field that creates energy for fueling like alien spacecraft and all that stuff. There's reports of that, but all to say that I think that, there's certain hot spots, especially in like the United States, where, there's been the most sightings across the world, where there's definitely a presence.
100%. Anchorage, 22,000 people disappearing without a trace. It's not even that they disappeared and they could investigate it. These people just disappeared, nothing. So aliens, maybe, who knows? But it's a high probability. The U.S. has the most reported sightings, but we also don't follow the news and reportings from around the world. There's other countries, China, who offered to be the head of alien research for the world, but that was shot down. But are you really reporting it to the Chinese government, to the Russian government, to North Korea? And if you are they sharing it with us? Just knowing what I know about those 3 countries, no. They're not going to call up Biden and be like, hey, we saw 67 aliens yesterday. We saw a bunch of UFOs flying around.
Well, you can't really call Biden because
That's
he's
true.
sleeping.
He's not taking any calls.
No.
Yeah, he's just waiting out his time. So, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to call him.
No.
Give us a call in January.
Yeah.
When the new one's in.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
But yeah, you think about what happens in Alaska. We have hotspots around the planet. Who knows what's going on in Alaska? They say there's weird stuff that's been seen up there, Yetis, but there's remote areas up there.
Yeah.
There's so many remote areas throughout the world that we haven't explored. There's a lot of people who feel there are ancient things in, whether it's the desert, the ocean, the rainforest, because we have not been able to explore them or have not wanted to explore them as in depth. There's a lot of unexplained stuff that we would find that have been rumors or myths for years. I don't think we're going to find Bigfoot there, though.
Well, it's
I mean, that dude is great at hide and seek.
It doesn't have anything to do with aliens, but there's an island, I can't remember where it is, but I was watching some show the other day where there has been reports of mermaids.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so like mermaids that are essentially luring sailors into specific areas and essentially murdering them. Murderous mermaids, which there hasn't been a movie made off of murderous mermaids, but idea for another day. But yeah, I mean, there's weird things that are happening in specific places that there seems to be like weird triangles, Bermuda Triangle, Alaska Triangle, and there's like a couple of other areas that have hotspots for electromagnetic fields and stuff where, watches don't work.
Navigation systems don't work.
Yeah, avionics go nuts.
Yeah, they go out. So I mean, are those no fly, no swim, do not come here zones from our friends in the skies?
Yeah,
or our friends under the ocean, wherever they might be,
or both.
Yeah. Is that what that is? Those are just sections where are they launch pads for people?
Yeah,
or sorry, not people, but aliens.
Yeah,
who knows?
Or half-breeds.
Yeah, half-breeds. Is that where they take the people they took from Anchorage, Alaska area? They fly them to the Bermuda Triangle and take them away?
Yeah.
Which leads us into a thing like, if they are, let's say aliens are abducting us. What are they doing with us? What do they need us for?
Well, okay, so
slave labor?
Well, that's the theory. That's what back in the days is before Homo sapiens. So what came before Homo sapiens? There's another.
This is the shit we don't know, guys.
Oh yeah. So
leave it in the comments so we'll know it for next time.
Yeah. Okay. So before Homo sapiens, there was another species, and they were inferior to Homo sapiens, and then Homo sapiens killed them, and then they ceased to exist. Right. So like, I don't know about like the theory of evolution or whatever. I look at monkeys or chimps or whatever, and like honestly, like yeah, they share very similar DNA, and they kind of like do some of the same things, but they just don't have the same cognitive behavior as like a human does. It's just like, let's just be real about that. And like, so I personally don't think that we just evolved over time from that species to where we're like monkeys and then came up and became what we are today. Because if you think about it, like monkeys can stay out in the open and then don't have to wear like skin protection or whatever. Like they have like thick like fur and stuff. Like we don't. I mean, some of us do, whatever, but just depending on genetics and stuff. But for the most part, like we still have to wear, protection from the sun. There's a lot of things that can harm us. Like we're a very delicate species, but we're also dominant at the same time, because of the tooling that we have created to destroy man. It's just weird that we would kind of progress, but then also regress in certain elements to where monkeys, like they were able to adapt to their current environments or chimps or whatever, like that show, like the Chimp Empire, whatever the fuck it's called on Netflix and shit. Like that was interesting because they have the same dynamics as humans, as chimpanzees,
Political. It was crazy.
It's extremely political. Yeah, like gang wars. That's what it was.
100%. They divide up into sections.
Yeah.
And they roam their territory. Mm-hmm. They have political connections. You got to come in, meet with whoever the lead guy, the alpha.
Yeah.
And you clean him. And if he cleans you back, you're in his group.
Yeah.
Same shit we do here as humans.
Yeah.
Yet different.
Yeah.
They've adapted to the environment. They're still primitive in a way, in a manner of speaking, they're almost like we were when we were Neanderthals, which was before us.
There you go.
And then Homo erectus. I don't know which one they would be closer to. I think there's 7 stages.
Sure.
Science class in high school's coming back to me.
Yeah.
Or biology, whichever one it was. But
I think that we killed them, the Neanderthals.
Yes.
They were just like, you guys suck or whatever.
Yeah. You guys can't do what we can do.
No. So
but when we got that jump start, where we went this way and everything else went the other way, what gave us a jump start? I mean, there's some crazy theories out there. There's evolution, which is what we all tend to buy into. We all believe we evolved 7 stages and became what we are today, and we're still evolving. Who knows what we'll be 1,000 years from now? But my favorite one is the alien astronaut, is that they gave us a little bump, a little nudge in the right direction, because they needed us as slaves to mine gold and other minerals on this planet for them.
That would make sense.
So they saw us and they're like, these guys could be good workers. Unfortunately, the Neanderthal wasn't a higher thinking being like the aliens. So they needed to give us a little nudge in the right direction. So they helped us evolve into what we are, into humans, Homo sapiens, so we could help them mine their minerals to take back to their home planet. It's a great theory. It's a great conspiracy or alternate thinking to how we became what we are. Because they were, from what I've read on this, the aliens were coming here and they were taking the gold. They were mining all this stuff themselves, but they were a smaller race. There wasn't enough of them and it was tiresome. So being that they're smarter than we are, they decided to evolve us and said, all right, they can be our slaves. And then eventually they died out. Mm-hmm. And we are what we are today. One of my favorite theories. I just think it's
really interesting.
So, but if you go back through time, how many ancient tribes, whether it's 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, how many of them talk about or draw about objects in the sky? They draw people with enlarged eyes. I mean, you go all the way back to 400 BC, there's statues that look like aliens.
Yeah.
That can't be a coincidence.
No, it can't.
So it's easy to understand how people came to these conclusions, because there is a lot of evidence out there that shows that aliens have been visiting this planet for a long ass time.
Yeah, and there's like different statures of like the aliens themselves. There's the small ones, the little green men and stuff like that. They're like 4 feet tall and stuff. And then you have giants. You have the Utah giants. You have the other giants that have been found in different places and stuff like that. Where it's just like there's like the Nephilim, and like there's like all these different theories and stuff. Where it's just like finally whoever it was as a higher being got us right. And they were just like, okay, like, they got what they needed in terms of gold. And that's where I think you and I were having a conversation the other day where it's just like, do we still have gold reserves? Who knows? Mm-hmm. Like, remember when we captured Saddam Hussein and we found a bunch of gold there? What happened to that gold? I don't know. Like, did we take it back and put it in our reserves that does or doesn't exist? Was the Iraqi war really about like nuclear weapons? No, it wasn't. Was it about reclaiming that gold so that way we can pay off our alien masters?
This is where we go off the reservation, folks. So, because gold, or there's scientists have stated this before, and then we're going to get back on that topic. Just so you guys understand who are listening, where we're coming up this.
Yeah.
Before
we continue, though, let's take a quick break.
Yes. And we're going to come back to talking about gold and aliens.